What's up, you vengeful bastards? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ProRevenge. Revenge on evil landlord. When I was in university, I'd heard stories about horrible landlords of student housing, but hadn't experienced it myself until third year, when it felt like I got 3 years worth of crappy landlords all in one go. It began when I heard noises in the wall behind my bed at night. I brushed it off for a while until I realized that it was an animal in the wall. I told the landlords the next day, and they immediately played dumb, acting as if I was stupid in front of my housemates for suggesting that something could fit inside of a wall. That was the first alarm bell. Why immediately try to embarrass me into dropping it? After explaining that I know what a cavity wall is, she asked if we'd seen anything in the kitchen. Oddly specific, we didn't think about it until later. From then on, her husband dealt with us. We weren't aware that he was our landlord too. A little time passes, still nothing done about the noise in my wall. Not that it was a surprise. I'd worked out by then that it was probably something like a mouse, and that it could run through the terrace of houses. As long as it didn't chew its way through my wall or die in there, I put the whole thing on the back burner. Until we were all sat in the sitting room and heard a thud in the kitchen, then squeaking. There was a giant rat in our kitchen. The rat disappeared into a hole in the completely crumbling kitchen wall, and the landlord claimed that we made it up, and that they'd never had a rodent problem. I contacted the previous tenants through Facebooking names I found on letters for them that had been posted to us by mistake. The property had had a rat problem for the last 3 years before we moved in at least. I set a rat trap and caught one, took photos, and sent them to the landlord to tell him to sort the problem out. He told us that because there was a line in our contract about landlord not paying for pest control, the contract specified wasps' nests, etc. We didn't even think about rats when we signed it. That we'd have to pay the hundreds of pounds to fix it. He'd knowingly written that into the contract so he wouldn't have to pay out, instead of fixing the kitchen wall and the exterior wall where the rats were getting in. To cut the rest of the setting the scene part of the story short, we called the council, who sent a pest control team. While on their visit, one of the men took my housemate to one side and told her that our landlord is evil and he is known for getting nasty. They told him that it wasn't our fault that they were rats, it was his. And he screamed in my face until he was bright red about how I was a terrible person and was trying to take him down for no reason. One of my housemates had to leave because she was scared. I wasn't. We were in a room full of men who were backing us up, making himself look worse for screaming in my face like that. I'm female and was 22 at the time, about half his size. He tried to sue us for slander. It isn't slander if it's true, so swing and a miss. It was written into our contract that we had to be notified 24 hours in advance if anyone needed access to the house, which included house viewings. I began my mission: stop any other students from getting stuck in this hellhole. The house was being shown by agents, so it made it fairly easy. I left the rat traps in prominent places, casually explaining why we needed them if asked. And if I felt I was being too subtle, making a fake show of, "Oh gosh, please ignore the rat traps. The landlord said he'd fix the kitchen wall where they get in, but hasn't gotten around to it, so we have to catch them." I was honest about the mold problem in the bathroom. When I found out that they were planning on increasing the rent by £100 a month, I made a point of saying something like, "Well, it's just about worth the rent I was paying." I made sure to use his name so they wouldn't get away with using his wife's name as a front while his reputation for aggression stayed hidden. The agents never said anything to me directly, and because we had to be notified, I could always make sure I was home when there was a viewing. My housemates fully supported my revenge, but I was the woman of action in the house. When I'm sure I'm in the right, I will do what's necessary to make things right. That was until they tried to turn up unannounced one day. not even knocking, just unlocked our front door and walked in. Luckily, I was in the house and kicked them out for not informing us and told them that they were in breach of our contract. If the crappy landlord could use it to beat us with, two can play at that game. No new tenants had signed for the house by the time we were free of that hellhole. It's been 2 years now though, so I have no idea what happened to the rat house. Oh my gosh, how do people think that they can get away with crap like that? Where are all the landlords that are like another parent for people or something? You know, the people that actually care about their tenants and stuff like that. That would be nice. That would be nice. But this landlord's behavior is actually kind of making sense because that man is obviously a rat, so why wouldn't he want his rat brethren to live where they please? Alrighty, this story's called My Dad Had an Affair with His BFF's Wife. So, my dad had an affair with his BFF's wife. Let's call her Jane. She claimed she was pretty much in love with my father, and of course her husband didn't know. I found out because once I got a Facebook Messenger message from a fake account telling me that my father was hanging with his BFF's wife. I actually didn't care. My parents have been divorced since 2005. The problem was that someone unknown was sending my mother text messages, telling her to leave my father alone and many offensive things. We let it slide for a while, but then those anonymous messages became a daily thing. We confronted my dad and he confessed that he was sleeping with Jane, but he said she was not the one sending the messages. He said he was sure because Jane's husband was also getting those messages. My dad was practically blinded by her manipulation, and my mom and I had a really strong hunch that it was her. My dad got so mad after we suggested it that he stopped speaking to me and my mom for a while. I also got mad, but much more offended because he would not believe me. I mean, I had no reason to lie to him. Still, I let all of that slide. But then, I got another anonymous message offending me, telling me I was just like my mother and that's why my boyfriend had dumped me, and that we would be alone for the rest of our lives, and things like that. Then I got really mad. I went to the cyber police, is a thing where I'm from, and they tracked the source of the anonymous messages. It turns out that it was her, and she was also sending her husband messages because she was so desperate for the truth to come out so she could be with my father. Although I think that just confronting her husband would have been better, what she really wanted was to distance my father from me and my mom. She was messing with my family, so I decided to mess with hers and sent the proof to her husband and her sons that she was behind the anonymous messages and that she was, in fact, sleeping with my dad. I also showed my dad the proof and exposed her on Facebook. She was a saleswoman, so it did affect her. Her sons and her husband were so mad at her. She had to move out of her house, and my dad broke up with her as well. She was left alone, but I feel like that's what she deserved. So, did the dad just get away with freaking betraying his best friend? Like, what? Like, they're just glossing over the fact that they're best friends and he's sleeping with his wife. That's horrible. I mean, depending on who you ask. Some people are into that. Alright, this story is called Restaurant Scams Me for Fake Google Reviews. I burn their Google Reviews page and reputation to the ground and get the media to cover it. Hi, folks. First post here, thought it would definitely fit. So about a month ago, I applied for a sushi restaurant called Yoshi's, and I got a text from their hiring manager, and we chatted about my availability, location, start date, yada yada. She then asked me to write a review of general Japanese food to show I knew what I was talking about and could upsell customers. Fine. I write a long review and send it to her. She then sends me a tiny link URL and tells me to post it there before I would be invited for an interview. I click it and what do you know? It's the Google page for a whole different restaurant all the way across the city. So I read the reviews and they had done this to 30 or so people in the last 2 weeks at the different locations franchised to the same crazy owner. I was pissed to say the least. This happened peak Brovid in my state. People are unemployed at staggering rates, struggling to feed their families, and these buttholes are scamming potential hires for fake reviews. Being unemployed, I had some time on my hands, so I screenshotted our convo and posted it all over social media. They went from 3.4 to 1.2 in a few hours, with more than 70 new reviews about their crappy behavior. I was satisfied with that, and a report to the Attorney General here. But then I noticed the owner had managed to get all the reviews removed. So at that point, I went full nuclear. I contacted every media outlet, reported them to every oversight board, emailed corporate about it, and reported them to Google. I managed to get one of our local news outlets to cover it, and Google ended up removing all of their reviews altogether. Scam me and countless others during a global pandemic? I ruin your business's reputation for your crappy behavior. How dare they tarnish Yoshi's name? He would never do anything like that, come on. Alrighty, this story's called Silence Me for 4 Years? Enjoy losing all of your friends. So, some backstory. My freshman year of high school, I was sexually assaulted by a peer, and so was another girl. I kept it to myself because we had a lot of mutual friends and I didn't want them to be uncomfortable or feel like they had to choose a side. I also felt like I was responsible, and it made me feel really guilty. I also suffered a lot of psychological repercussions. An eating disorder, I began eating, I developed severe anxiety and depression. Finally, it peaked and I forced myself to tell my English teacher. The police were called, I was interviewed. Already, I could tell the detective was not taking me seriously. He also blatantly misquoted me in the statement and used words like misunderstanding and he went in for a kiss, even though I made it very clear I struggled and I tried to push him away, and he had me pinned to the wall with his hand around my throat. He confessed after 10 minutes of being interviewed by the police. The charges got dropped by the prosecutor because he felt the case would never go to trial. He was a star student and was very well respected. After this, he was banned from speaking at school-sanctioned events. I was still quiet because I'm not a rock-the-boat type of person. Eventually, I found out he was planning on going to the same college I was going to. I wrote him a letter asking him to please reconsider. He had said he was very sorry earlier. I told him to put his money where his mouth is and prove it. He never replied. A few weeks later, I found out he's planning a speech at a baccalaureate event put on by a local interfaith community. I emailed the teacher in charge and told her what happened, and politely asked her to not allow him to speak. She emailed back and essentially said, "That's terrible. I'm so sorry. We're still gonna let him speak though. Feel better?" I'm livid at this point. I've been dismissed, belittled, ignored, and unheard for years despite my efforts to get justice. He's still incredibly popular and everyone loves him. I decided I've done all I can. I tried to take care of things on the down low, talked to him privately to come to an agreement, talked to the organizer to try and come to an agreement. They both ignored me just like the police did. So I decide I'm not gonna be quiet anymore. I attend the baccalaureate event, and while he's giving his speech, ironically about treating others with respect, I hold up a sign that says, redacted, has assaulted 2 women. Is this the face of class 2020? Stop giving assaulters and abusers a platform to speak. Stop silencing women. By the time the event is over, everyone is talking about it. And everyone is pissed at both him and the organizers for letting him speak. Many of the girls there are victims of sexual assault themselves, and they are all furious that the organization knowingly let a predator speak. I feel incredible. It's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. The last thing he told me after he'd finished violating me was, "Don't tell anyone." And even after years had passed and I felt comfortable speaking about it to a select few, and the police knew, and all the teachers knew, he was still praised. And every time I heard someone talk about him fondly, I heard that little voice from deep inside me saying, "You're letting him win." Now that everyone knows and everyone hates him, I know that finally, I can lay this matter to bed. I can finally let go. Edit. Good Lord! I am so overwhelmed with all these comments and gold? 2 golds? What the frick? Thank you guys so much. I'd like to make a blanket statement to all the sexual assault victims in my DMs and on the comments of this post. You are enough. You are loved. And even though the system is rigged against us, I hear you. I am listening. You don't need to hold up a sign to get your revenge. Sometimes taking care of yourself and moving on is enough. Trust me, I know it's easier said than done, but just know that I am on your side. I'm in your corner. I see you. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you ever need to talk. I love you. Edit 2. You guys, I appreciate you and all the awards so much. I think there's enough now though. If anyone wants to give another award, please take the money you would have used and donate it to one of the below. Thank you. Edit 3. Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for all of your well wishes. I love all of you so much. You are so sweet. I would like to address a few things. I have gotten a lot of direct messages as well as comments on this post from survivors of sexual assault telling me how brave I am and how I'm their hero. I appreciate that so much. You have no idea how happy that makes my heart, but I have something to say to all of you who said that. Yes, it was scary and hard to hold up the sign. I'm not saying that wasn't a brave thing to do. It was, and I'm proud of myself. However, I don't like what that implies. I don't like the implication that a survivor who is not yet ready to share their story, choosing to keep it private, is in any way an act of cowardice. My friends, you are all brave. You are brave just for waking up in the morning. You are brave for going to work. You are brave for making yourself dinner and letting yourself enjoy it. You have nothing to be ashamed of. That I can assure you. You are perfectly enough and you have nothing to prove. You do not have to earn your place in this world with acts of courage. You do not have to prove to the masses that you deserve to be alive, that you deserve to be happy. Just know that for yourself, because it's true. How could it possibly be anything but true? How could you possibly be anything less than perfect? You are kind. You are compassionate. You are strong. You are resilient. You are intelligent. You are brave. Be your own hero, my friends. I love you all. Well, that was very wholesome toward the end there. We gotta give props to OP for doing what she did. That definitely took a lot of courage to do, because as prevalent as, these sorts of things are, it's very taboo to bring up, because no one wants to think about that. It's uncomfortable. People need to realize, though, that a lot of these victims or survivors are literally uncomfortable in their own skin now because of what happened to them. I can't even imagine the frustration of having to live knowing that this guy who did horrible things to 2 people at least, at minimum, was just gonna get away with it scot-free. Anyway, really good story. I'm glad that he got some sort of punishment. And good on OP here for doing their best to try to help people out who need it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.